Hello, everyone. For chapter 24, we are leaving Europe for the first time this semester, and we're going to look at South Asia after 1200. This is a mad dash through a huge geographic region and a lot of time. And so we need a few questions to kind of help focus us. How do the art objects illustrate the main tenets of the faith for the practitioner? So, for example, we are going to look at Buddhist art. We are also going to look at Islamic art as well. How did trade and conquest affect the art of South and Southeast Asia? How was the visual culture of a particular religion influenced by the native culture into which it was introduced? And how did certain artworks have both a personal and public meaning? We're going to start with Buddhism. And just a brief overview of Buddhism for us. Remember that the first, the historical Buddha is Prince Siddhartha, who is the first to have achieved enlightenment, the ability to understand the true nature of all things. And when you achieve enlightenment, you are also released from samsara, the endless cycle of birth, disease, death, decay, and then rebirth. The Four Noble Truths, or the Buddhist law, the Dharma, are as follows. Life is suffering. The cause of suffering is desire. The cause of desire must be overcome. Therefore, when desire is overcome, there is no more suffering. There's no more rebirth. Let's look at this Tibetan Buddhist painting on cloth. These are paintings that would have been kept unframed and rolled up, and they were designed to be displayed briefly, often kept in monasteries and brought out for religious festivals. They also serve as a teaching tool and were used by students. They can be used in meditations on an individual's path towards enlightenment. I'm having speaking problems right now. Okay, we are seeing a scene from the Jataka Tales. This is a body of literature native to India concerning the previous births of the Buddha in both human and animal form. The future Buddha may appear as a king, an outcast, a god, an elephant, but in whatever form he exhibits some virtue that the tales thereby inculcates. Often, Jataka tales include an extensive cast of characters who interact and get into various kinds of trouble, whereupon the Buddha character intervenes to resolve all problems and bring about a happy ending. We can think about this in comparison to Giotto's Arena Chapel, this idea of taking complicated stories and showing them in narrative form as a way to help educate and enlighten the viewer. By 1200 in Asia, Buddhism is on the decline. The remaining enclaves are concentrated in the northeast, and also in the Pala dynasty, which is a historical period from about 750 to 1199 CE. Pala means protector. It's an honorific title given to all of the dynasty's rulers. And through trade routes and intellectual contacts throughout Southeast Asia and up into Tibet, we see the spread of Buddhism into this area. The Pala period Buddhism and art comes mainly in the form of manuscripts, small sculptures, drawings, other things that were portable, things that were carried through different parts of Asia by Buddhist pilgrims, monks, and students. The Palas were the last major Buddhist dynasty to rule South Asia and were destroyed by the Sena dynasty, a Hindu dynasty beginning in the 11th century. They followed a particular type of Buddhism called the Mahayanist tradition. It's rooted in the teachings of the historical Buddha, but seeks salvation for all beings. And this attitude is embodied in the idea of the Bodhisattva, whose outstanding quality is compassion. Now, a Bodhisattva is a little bit different than the Buddha because a Bodhisattva is an enlightened being who has achieved Buddhahood, but chooses to remain in the temporal world to assist others on their path towards enlightenment. So they're kind of a helper figure. Let's look at one of these bodhisattvas here produced during the Pala dynasty. This is the bodhisattva has many different personalities, many different guises, and this is one of the more popular bodhisattvas. Let's see if I can pronounce this here: Avalokiteshvara, or the Bodhisattva of Compassion. This is a small portable sculpture cast in bronze meant to be carried. Visitors to different monasteries in the Pala dynasty would carry these works back to their homes to aid new adherents in understanding the Buddhist Dharma, the Buddhist law. Monks would also take them to Tibet in order to spread the Dharma and assist with the conversion of Tibetans to Buddhism. Avalokiteshvara sits in half lotus, which is typical for bodhisattvas. So you see one leg kind of extended, one leg crossed. That half lotus position underscores that these deities live half in the earthly realm and half in the enlightened world. He sits on a lotus throne, but has one extended leg so he can quickly rise and come to the aid of any practitioner. The Buddhist, in contrast, unless he is standing, is always in full lotus. So that's a good indicator. The bodhisattvas also retain remnants of their worldly possessions and are depicted often wearing heavy jewelry and ornate clothing. We're going to skip through Hinduism. This is a chapter in the book, so it's significant, but I want to keep things as concise as possible for these lectures. And so that's also why you're going to see me kind of skip through some of these slides here as well. All right, let's move on to Islam. And I'm just going to briefly kind of review the major tenets of Islam here. Remember, this is one of the three Abrahamic religions, that the others being Christianity and Judaism. Now, the main prophet in Islam is Muhammad, who was born in Mecca in present-day Saudi Arabia, so west of South Asia, and he is considered by Muslims to be the last in the line of Judeo-Christian prophets. People like Abraham, Moses, Jesus, they are also considered prophets by practicing Muslims. And unlike Christianity, for example, Muhammad is not considered the Son of God as Jesus is considered by Christians, but he is considered a prophet to whom the word of God was revealed by the Archangel Gabriel in Arabic. And these revelations given to Muhammad were collected and codified in the Quran, which is the Muslim holy book. Remember that in Islamic art and architecture, for religious spaces and for religious art, they practice aniconism. So we don't see any figurative images of Muhammad, for example. However, in secular art done by Muslim patrons, for example, commissioned by them, we will sometimes see figuration, and that is certainly true in the Mughal Empire. The Mughal Empire rules the South Asian subcontinent from about 1526 to 1858, and it reveals much of the diversity among Muslims, the complexity of Islam, and the complexity of this region. So Mughal rulers are Sunni Muslims. Sunni is one branch of Islam. And typically the emperors married women from families who were Shiites, which is another branch of Islam, Shia. And sometimes they also married Hindus who remained Hindus. Roughly a quarter of the Mughals' subjects were Muslim, but they also followed an array of diverse Islamic ideologies and social and religious practices. we see this is a very multicultural period in Indian history. And when we come back in the next video, we're going to see how that diversity is reflected in the art of the Mughal Empire.